Hello, friends of Powerhouse Bakery. I'm so glad you're here to join me today. We are going to get to talk about one of my very favorite subjects, and that is the athlete and what makes the athlete a driver of a lot of our conversation, particularly around nutrition. And so often the athlete has at the center of their conversation of nutrition, protein. So we are going to talk today about the conundrum of the athlete, and that is, how do they gain more strength, more endurance, and a leaner, more fit physique, but also to win at whatever it is they are training to do. Nothing has driven our world of science more than that athlete's drive and desire to get the most out of their fitness. And so what I want to talk about today is not only what we've learned from the athlete's drive, but we also want to put up against science and the test of time, the information that the athlete has helped us to really learn. And so what I want to go through is what is important about protein. So to get started, we know that protein is really important as a building block. We know that protein is made up of what we'll abbreviate as AA, which is amino acids. And as you've heard me talk about before, we really have three macronutrients that we want to use in our meal planning. And the ultimate goal in all of these videos that I want to share with you is, how do you build your best foods list? And when we look at a food group like the protein, one of those three macronutrients, we want to understand, what does that do for our body? So what is our body getting from that protein in order to help us build strong bones, build strong muscles, repair and replenish the breakdown that happens in normal body functioning, but also for the athlete that wants high performance out of their physique and their training. So the amino acids are the building block of proteins. So when we look at amino acids, we want to think about what do they do for our bodies. So we know for sure they are involved in building muscle, but also lots of things, building immune system. So of course we know that muscles are important because that's what we've been taught, primarily from the interest of not only the athlete, but also looking at people in other parts of the world that have poor nutrition. And when we help to replenish their nutrition, we see that protein has a great impact on their overall recovery from malnutrition, helping to improve growth and repair, especially of young children. When we fortify their diets with protein-rich foods, we see that they get stronger and better and are able to grow better. So for sure, muscle. Also for bone, we know that amino acids are important in all growth of tissues. So in addition to bone and muscle, organs, we also know that amino acids are important in hormones and all of the regulatory components of our physiology. And so when we think about all of these things, another really big one is our immune system. So if we see someone that has compromised nutrition, we know that they are not going to grow as well. Their muscles will be smaller, their bones will not grow as well, and organs and hormones, but also their immune system is going to be compromised if they don't get enough amino acids. And so we know that's for sure important. Now let's think about specifically to the athlete, because when we think about the conundrum of the athlete, we understand that we are learning from their high goal of getting best performance out of their bodies. The athlete is being told that they should, of course, eat more protein. So eating more protein, thank you. Yes, thank you, sir. If they want to eat more protein, that is going to, of course, help them to build more muscle. They also are told to cut out carbs. So again, when we look at what the athlete is taught, and then we learn from what the athlete does, they are told to cut out carbs. And that's something I want to talk a little bit about today. The athlete is also told that you should use protein shakes. So any way you can get protein, you want to get it in. And shakes have been the common way that an athlete is taught to get their protein. Athletes are also taught that you should take supplements because more must be better. And the interesting thing about protein is that we are learning now in the 21st century that more isn't necessarily better. We'll talk a little bit about how the Western diet is really an amazing way to study that more is not better. So when we look at the athlete, they're told to cut out carbohydrates. They're told that protein shakes are the way to go, and that if you are determined to build your strong muscles and bones, and you're determined to have the best physique, then you must do these things. Adding electrolytes to water. So you've seen lots of products out there. Electrolytes, what are those? And we'll talk a little bit about that. Buying special equipment and shoes and all kinds of products are being told to the athlete that in order to really gain in your game, you have to buy these things. So we're really taught in so many ways that the athlete needs to have these products in order to have a strong body. And let's face it, that's what we're always looking for, is how do we build a strong body? And what are those building blocks that require that? So when we start really understanding the physiology, we start to understand maybe more about nutrition science. And that's what we're all trying to accomplish. So let's dig a little deeper. We know that building strength and endurance requires a delicate balance of an external stimulus. So what do I mean by an external stimulus? Well, that is putting challenge on your muscles and your bones and your immune system. So when we have an external stimulus, that requires the body to change. So if the athlete is working their muscles, first they need to have some energy in order to make those muscles work. So number one thing is, first we need energy in order to have enough power to work that external stimulus. And I'm just using that fancy term as a stretch or a strain or a work. So we'll call this work, external stimulus. So the athlete is pushing their muscles harder than what is comfortable, right? They're going to have to go beyond their comfort zone. That's what that work is all about. And that's going to then allow the muscles to change. That's when those amino acids that we take in are going to help the body to increase in size, increase in function. And that's where we start to see the body shift. Now we're able to manage that external stimulus because we've done extra work with extra energy, caused our body to create some change, and then whatever we eat is utilized to change the miraculous human body that we get to enjoy every day that we're alive. So what's really valuable here is that in order to do that stimulus, we've got to eat. So the carbohydrate that the athlete has been told to cut down on is probably erroneous at best, meaning that we do not need to cut out carbohydrates in order to get this change that we want. Increase in function, increase in size, increase in speed. All of those are going to be absolutely important of getting enough energy in order to do the work that's asked of us. So as we learn from that athlete, we know that carbohydrates are in fact critical in the whole process. So let's go back to some of the building blocks. If we understand that amino acids are important in building and repairing muscle tissue, and we've learned from our past videos that carbohydrates are important for energy, protein gives us those amino acids. Here, I'll go ahead and write it all out so you can see. Amino acids. So we really need carbs and protein in order to have the ideal nutrition. Then the question will be, well, where do we get protein? Where's the best source? Do we need to take it in a protein shake? Do we need to have it in a chicken breast or a steak? And what in fact is in that protein shake that makes it the athlete's first choice? And so there's a couple of ways that I want to address this. One is how quickly does the nutrient get broken down in our body and become accessible to the muscle cells? So we know that chicken breast takes a lot of mastication, so chewing, right? And so it's going to need to be digested and absorbed before it can get into the bloodstream and then go into the muscles and be able to be utilized. So it goes from the animal muscle to the amino acids, and then it gets put into the human body and gets rebuilt into some more tissue, which is going to be our muscles or whatever we need repairing at the given time. So digested and absorbed. So now let's look at that protein shake. What makes that different? Well, it's kind of already digested, so we don't need to worry about that. It's going to be absorbed quickly. And so in some cases, that's a good thing for an athlete. If they don't want to have a lot in their gut, if they want to throw some food down very quickly and get back to the gym or back to the track for more workouts, or they need a large volume of calories and it's hard to get all of that food prepared and cooked and digested. And so in that case, a protein shake might be a good choice for them. Ultimately, both items, both the chicken breast and the protein shake, are going to give those important amino acids. Not to mention that in that meal for the athlete, we also need to have the rest of the meal. So the rest of the meal means we need to have all the other nutrients that are important for the energy in order to do the functions. So the carbohydrates are really cool because if the athlete has enough carbohydrates, that means that they'll have enough energy to work those muscles and they'll be able to preserve the calories that they took in from that chicken breast or that protein shake to actually do the repair and the rebuild. So what happens if an athlete eats just a lot of protein and says, okay, I'm going to cut down carbohydrates. So they eat a large amount of protein and a very small amount of carbs. What happens there? Well, their energy could be low because they don't have enough energy from that carbohydrate. The other thing that happens, which again is so amazing the way God has made our bodies, we have the ability to use protein as an energy source if we need to. We know that protein is made from carbon, nitrogen, and some sulfur. So that's all the chemistry I'll give you. But remember that carbohydrates are also made out of carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen. So they're all built with very similar molecules. So if our body needs to, we can break down that chicken breast or that cottage cheese or steak, if we need to, into energy. The downside is that when we have to break down that chicken breast for energy, we don't have the amino acids we need to rebuild and repair. And that's why sometimes we start needing supplementation. Because all of a sudden, the athlete is realizing that they're missing something. And that's such an interesting conundrum, right? They're missing something because they put all of their eggs in one basket and they eat a lot of protein. They cut down on carbs because they've been taught, quite erroneously, that carbohydrates will slow you down, will turn into fat, don't really give you all the stuff of an athlete, which is those protein foods. And so the reality is then we start getting into this big confusion of, well, what supplements should I take? Should I take some branched chain amino acids, for example? Or should I take an extra protein shake? Or should I take a pill form of extra vitamins and minerals? And so that's a really interesting conundrum that I want us to keep looking at. So let's look at the branched chain amino acids. That's a type of supplement that is touted for an athlete. When we look at branched chain amino acids, those are really just a type of amino acid. Let's get a little more science, just a hair. If we know what amino acids are available for us, we have 20 of them. And those 20 amino acids work to make billions of combinations. So these 20 molecules can turn into billions of different types of proteins. So what happens is there are some of these amino acids that our body can make. They can make those building blocks. So there's going to be some too that are essential, meaning that our body can't make them. So if we eat a potato and we eat a chicken breast and we eat some beans, each of these foods has a different mix of amino acids. What's nice is that something like a chicken that has muscle, it's very similar to our muscle. It's going to have all the amino acids needed for rebuilding muscle. If we eat a plant-based protein, there's quite often missing amino acids. And you've probably heard of a complete protein. And if you've ever talked to a vegan, the first question is, well, where are you getting your protein? And so the answer to that is you're getting your protein from plant sources because all plants contain some amino acids. So then, as we're looking at the essential amino acids, that just means that there are some out there that our body cannot make. Instead, we really need to get them from foods. So now, let's look at where those essential amino acids are. The good news is that even foods like beans and lentils and tofu have those very essential amino acids. Even though a potato doesn't have muscle tissue like a chicken, they still have those essential amino acids. So what's nice is these essential amino acids can come from animals and they can also come from plants. And here's a little subset of some of these important amino acids. I'm getting back to that branch chain structure. So what's cool about a branch chain amino acid is because of the way it has its nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen mixed together, our bodies can break that down and use it for energy a little bit easier than some of the other amino acids that have other compounds hanging around like sulfur that make it a little harder for our body to digest for energy. So what's nice is when our bodies need to have energy and we're not getting enough animal protein or enough essential amino acids, our body's pretty good at making our protein out of the building blocks that we can get from plant-based foods. Even those essential amino acids come from some of those plant-based foods. And what's really nice is we have some built-in insurance for energy too, because these branch chain amino acids can be used either as energy or as a building block. So that's why athletes are often told that you should supplement with branch chain amino acids. And that's because oftentimes they're cutting down on their energy because here's the way the thought process goes. I want to show off my muscles, so I don't want to eat too many carbs, so I don't want to have any fat deposition, so that I can show off what I'm doing and I'm going to be faster and stronger and leaner and I'm going to win that race if I don't have extra fat hanging around. So what I really should just eat is all the protein that I can and leave out the carbohydrates because I really don't need them. So the process goes that they potentially have inadequate energy and their body has plenty of building blocks because they're eating lots of chicken breasts, but they're not eating enough energy. So again, that's why the branch chain amino acids become a popular supplement for those athletes. Pretty cool, right? So when you think about it, when we look at an athlete that now is becoming more and more knowledgeable about nutrition, and we even see some athletes that are going, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try eating all plant-based nutrition and see if I can still be strong enough to win and to perform and to have great lean musculature. What would happen if I just got all of my nutrition from plants? Pretty cool thought. So if we think of what an athlete would need in order to get all of the essential amino acids, and if we wanted that athlete to also get all of the vitamins, minerals, and energy, what would that diet look like? So I'm not suggesting that we need to make everybody go vegan, but what I want you to have as a takeaway is that what we've been taught over the last 50 years might not be the full picture. And this is coming from a personal trainer. I've been teaching nutrition for about 30 years. And I too have learned through the years that maybe what we've been taught is somewhat skewed. It's skewed because we live in a world of strong marketing, and we've got lots of entities that will benefit from making a proclamation that people will want to follow, especially when we see amazing athletes and they're able to perform amazing feats. So know that it's a very interesting trend that we want to understand and really know how it will affect your best foods list. And that's always what it boils down to, is how will your food choices be improved by gaining new knowledge and maybe even just a new perspective. So as we start to build this protein foods list for the athlete, let's imagine what it might be like if we had a mixed diet. So maybe less animal product and maybe more plant-based product. So we know for sure that those essential amino acids can be found in plant foods. So we could have potato, we could have beans, we could have all kinds of veggies. And the nice thing about these foods is they also are a great way to get plenty of complex carbohydrates. And we've learned that when a carbohydrate is complex, that means it has protein, it has vitamins, and it has extra minerals. One other thing I want to bring up is that when we have a diet that is primarily plant-based, something else wonderful happens. We get more hydration with our foods because those plant-based foods are so often part of a high water content. For example, we know that zucchini is almost 90% water. Potato and beans certainly have water as part of the cell structure. We know that quinoa is a perfect protein. Perfect protein meaning that it has all the essential amino acids and it's got a great source of vitamins and minerals to boot. So as we start building this best foods list for the athlete, we know that we can include more potatoes, beans, and veggies to meet their protein requirement. And so now, just in closing, what I want you to see is how did our athlete sort of direct us to the amount of protein we need. So often in a fitness world, the athlete will be told you need about 1 gram of protein per kilogram body weight. So a couple of issues go into that. One, body weight, meaning your ideal body weight or your current body weight, or if you have some weight to lose, maybe it's where you want to get. So big question there, which I'll certainly tackle for you as we go. But let's just suffice to say, if we had 1 gram of protein for a typical male, 150-pound male, and the USDA and the NIH, so the National Institute of Health, is telling us that we need between 0.8 and 1 gram of protein per kilogram body weight. The reality is that right now, people in the US are already getting well over 60 grams of protein per day. This equates to about 50 grams of protein a day. Depending on what you look at, 60 grams is kind of the average that people are getting. Now, what if they were told to go to even higher diet plan? So here we are, we've got the athlete that has been taught that they are the cream of the crop and they're going to get the very best they can out of their bodies. They're going to have to really focus on their nutrition. So new diets that are out there, the Zone diet says 30% protein. The keto diet, which athletes now are following, has as much as 50% protein. And again, the USDA says 10% protein is really all we need. So look at how confusing this becomes. Where do we need to fall in this range? The exciting part is that we're really finding out that athletes actually do just fine on less protein than what we thought. But that doesn't mean we can go out and eat candy bars, because we want to make sure that instead of eating perhaps more chicken breast, we want to now focus on how do we get more energy and more micronutrients. Again, oftentimes coming from a plant-based diet. So in summary, what I'm going to recommend for you is I want you to think about where your protein is coming from in your diet and what influences your choice of diet. So are you looking at building your body as an athlete? Are you thinking about your goal of maybe losing weight or gaining muscle? Because let's face it, we always want to have more muscle and less fat. What is the most effective way to do that? And in general, I want you to get your protein from excellent sources. We want to think of plant-based foods. We can certainly use eggs and dairy as a source, but not the only source. We can certainly use fish, and we can use meats, a good source, but not the only source. Think about how you can incorporate all of those into your best protein diet so that we can truly learn from the Athlete's Conundrum how to get our very best diet plan for our best health. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you back soon.